These scientists, they would study how sand piles are formed. They would drop grains of sand and a pile begins to form. And they would study when the avalanche would occur. And they could never predict, because they'd repeat the same exercise or experiment over and over again, they could never predict which grain of sand would create a large avalanche. Now they could over time predict that there would be a ratio of small avalanches to large ones. Like for every 5 small avalanches of sand, you have 1 big one. But they could never predict which grain of sand would trigger the big final avalanche. And really, I think that's what happens to us in this movement and in this party. You know, we toil sometimes tirelessly, seemingly not making much progress. And yet, there'll be just 1 more grain of sand and everything will change. And what I mean by that is, if I'd said to you 30 years ago that the Berlin Wall would fall, and when it did, people would break it apart with their bare hands, you would have thought that not possible, because that was impenetrable. If I told you that a black political prisoner would be president of South Africa, you would have said that was inconceivable. And yet these things happened, and when they did, they happened in an instant. And in hindsight, we said it was self-evident that it would occur. Before, it was an impossibility, and after, it was inevitable. And so it is with us. What we are working for is inevitable. It is inevitable, but what we cannot tell is which grain of sand, which one of our activities is going to create the cascade. You know, we do not know when this profound change will occur. And so when you ask, which grain of sand caused that avalanche? It's like some Zen cone. Can you say the last one caused the avalanche? It's both yes and no. You know, yes, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. But no, it required every single grain of sand that preceded it to set up the necessary conditions for that tectonic shift to happen in an instant. And so all the work that you have been doing, that I have been doing, that we have been doing collectively, is setting up the time for this profound shift to occur in our society, where we get to a better future for our children. So in that sense, I'm so honored to be here with you tonight. I want to leave you with some incredible hope. In 1977, the cost of solar power was about $76 per watt. And last year it had fallen to 36 cents per watt, which means that solar power is the fastest growing form of new energy globally. And in fact, in 2014, new renewable energy exceeded all new fossil fuel and nuclear energy power combined. And one of the things that people have a difficulty in understanding is exponential growth. So AT&T, the largest telephone company in the 1980s, employed McKinsey, the smartest group of consultants in the world, or at least so they think, to do a study on the mobile cell phone market. And they studied it, and I don't know if you remember, back then, these things were like bricks. The Motorola brick, it looked about this big, and it had an antenna, and you carried around a 3-pound battery pack to power that sucker. You know, these things were thousands of dollars and $7 a minute to be on the phone. Very expensive things. Anyways, here you have your mobile phone. They studied the market, and they said by the year 2000, there will be 900,000 of these mobile phones sold. Now, this is the brightest management consulting firm in the world, talking to the largest the largest telco in the world. And so, based on that wisdom, AT&T sold their mobile division. because it was a very limited market. Now, what the brightest in the world could not see is the power of exponential growth. Because what happened, just like Moore's law says that computer power will double every year, every 18 months while staying at the same price point, the same thing happened to mobile phones. They got smaller, they got lighter, they got cheaper. In fact, they got so cheap, so small, so light, that it was no longer corporations that had to make the decision to buy them. Individuals began to buy them. So in the year 2000, yes, there were 900,000 mobile phones sold in the first 3 days of the year. In the end, it was 109 million were sold. So the top telco company and the top management company were only out by a factor of 122-fold. Why is this important? Because there is a democratization of our energy that is happening right now. Solar power has got so cheap that China last year installed more solar power than the US has in its 40-year history of solar power. One country in 1 year. And solar power is doubling every 2 years globally in terms of total capacity, and it has been for the last 25 years. I want you to imagine a lily pond that has one lily in it on day one, and the number of lilies double every day. So that at the end of 30 days, the entire lily pond is absolutely covered with lilies. You can't see any water. So at day 29, how much open water is there? 50%. 50%. At day 28, how much water is open? 75%. One day before that, 87.5. One day before that, 94.25. One day before that. You see this progression. You're working in society or a company or your community, and you see it has hit 2% of the total pond. And you say, beware, beware, in just 7 more days, the whole pond is going to be overrun with lily pads. And they go, what are you talking about? I see 98% open water. You're crazy. That's the point we are at today with solar power. Within 7 more doublings, the whole lily pond, that's a tongue twister. The lily pond will be covered with pads. The pond will be covered with pads, ponds and pads. So, in just 7 more doublings of solar power capacity, 100% of the world's needs could be met simply by solar. And so we are living in this most exciting time. There has never been a better time to be a green. There has never been a better time to be representing the desperate need for an alternative way to work than the madness of our current society, which is based on actually stripping out virgin materials and creating pollution at the same time. Do you know that Amory Levins did a study about in natural capitalism about the actual material content that is still in use in our industrial process after 6 months, and it turns out to be 6%. 94% is waste in our current industrial system. So this take, make, waste process we have has to change to closed loop systems. And so we're on the cusp of this incredible revolution of unimaginable proportions. Like we are at the time in East Berlin, just days before the wall falls. You know, we're in South Africa just days before a black political prisoner becomes president. And these times are confusing and chaotic. You know, it seems we're going forward, we're going backwards. We have Mr. Harper in Ottawa. And yet, we must be persistent, and we shall prevail. And so, congratulations to our 2 candidates. Congratulations to everyone who came out. Congratulations on running in Beaches East York. It's a riding I ran in federally in '06. Very dear to my heart. And as I said, it's an honor to be here.